The official translation for One Piece chapter 1152 just came out, and I'm excited to talk about this because I feel like the official translation gives a whole new set of meaning to the chapter than what was previously interpreted, and this is very important. So starting off, we have another installment of Yamato's cover series. Now, this one's been going on for a long time. I'm not exactly sure what's going on here or where it's going. Like I said, Yamato had Page One and Ulti join her by her side, and now she's giving a straw hat to Kawamatsu, who is the daimyo of the Hakumai region. That was made, it was a straw hat made by Otama. Not much is going on here, but like I said, I am interested to see where this cover story is going. Granted that it's taking place in Wano, we're most likely going to circle back to Wano at some point. It's going to be a story relevant again, so I'm interested to see where this ends up. But getting into the actual chapter, we start off with the underground crew getting ready to head up to the second layer of Elbaf, where they're going to help out their friends, because a lot of stuff's happening on the second layer right now. And it's actually interesting because at this point, Scopper Gabon gives us some information about Conquerors Haki, letting Luffy know, be mindful of how you're using your Conquerors Haki, because the God's Knights are by no means immortal, which, we could kind of infer at this point about that. But there's actually procs Loki to say that, oh, I have Conquerors Haki too, basically, and I can help up upstairs, so, let me free and I'll help you guys out, which causes Harjin and Loki to have some back and forth. Basically Loki is trying to convince everyone that he's innocent, and we're getting a flashback at the end of this chapter. I think Loki's character is a little bit misunderstood by a lot of people. I don't think the story was ever supposed to paint him as a bad guy. It's very clear that he's supposed to be one of those characters that seems one way in the beginning, but they're completely different by the end. Even like us as fans, the way we perceive him, we imagine that he's gonna be like this extremely wild guy that's out of control. It seems like all of that is just a front. He's very similar to Luffy, where he's just I feel like he's like a vibes guy. He really knows how to read and judge a person, With that being said, I feel like this part of the chapter is very important how it's interpreted, because Scopper Gabon in the official translation says there is more than one among you who possesses Conquerors Haki. Now, in the scans, he said that there's another person who possesses Conquerors Haki. So in the official, he says more than one, and in the scans, he says there's another, implying a single person. Now, why I said this is very important is because, Rayleigh has Conquerors Haki, obviously Roger had Conquerors Haki, and Scopper Gabon had Conquerors Haki. Remember, there's no second or third when it comes to Zoro and Sanji. They're both equally the wings of the Pirate King. Thematically, it wouldn't make sense that Sanji wouldn't have Conquerors Haki if Scopper Gabon in personality was I saw a lot of people saying in the comments, they were like, oh yeah, Sanji doesn't have Conquerors Haki because he is a lover, he's a very kind person, he rejected the Germa who wanted to rule and stuff like that. It's what the heck is Scopper Gabon ruling over right now? He's, even later on in the chapter, it's Shanks says, oh yeah, anytime Scopper Gabon touched down at the port, he's running to the ladies. So he's just like Sanji in every way, us outside of, I guess, cooking. So this is very important when Scopper Gabon says this, because later on Sanji asks him about it, and so when Scopper Gabon brings up, oh, there's more than one of you who possesses Conquerors Haki on Luffy's crew, he then says to Zoro, he says, you swordsman, you seem quite accustomed to it. So he's not saying that only Zoro has Conquerors Haki. What he's saying is that right now, Zoro, you seem at the moment to be using it better. You seem to be able to use it, consistently, more proficiently. You seem to be understanding how to use Conquerors Haki. And later on, Luffy says, oh, Zoro, the Conquerors Haki's been oozing off of you. How do you not understand this? How did you not know that you had Conquerors Haki? So there's a big difference, because if Sanji's never tapped into that power before, he might have it and you might be able to sense it on him, but it seems like he doesn't fully understand the power, and he's not adjusting to it because he hasn't tapped into that power. And Scopper Gaban says Haki is only useful if you're consciously using it and know how it works. So at this point, Scopper Gaban is talking to Sanji. Sanji walks up to him and he's like, hey, what about me? Do I have Conquerors Haki? Because I'm not trying to get, overshadowed by Jinbei and Zoro. And then we get this weird panel where it's like, Harujin and Loki are talking, and Sanji is just like in a quiet panel. He's like his cigarette's about to fall out of his mouth, and he's like, he's got like an all look fit on like on his face, right? And this can be up to interpretation. You could take this one or two ways. You could either take it as Gaban told him, you don't have Conquerors Haki, kid. Sorry, you just weren't one of the chosen few. Or you could take it as he's like, yeah, you have it, you just haven't tapped into it yet. But if you work hard, you'll be able to get into it. But you're not actively, pursuing that. But you need to tap into that if you want to surpass Zoro or whatever like that. That's how I'm interpreting it. Like I said, I don't see a reality where Sanji doesn't have Conquerors Haki, because like when we first got introduced to Conquerors Haki, it seemed like this ethereal thing that like was to separate the top tiers from like the regular people. So if someone had Conquerors Haki, they were basically a threat. Now that is still the case, but now that we know it's more, it's less significant for like, for example, like people debated whether Garp or Sengoku back in the day had Conquerors Haki because they were Marines, right? So we thought it was more like a mindset, like who are the contenders to be Pirate King, who on the seas are the biggest threat. Like obviously the Yonko would have it, but now that we know Sengoku has it, now that we know Garp has it, by Zoro having Conquerors Haki, that literally means Mihawk has Conquerors Haki. So it's less of like being like a ruler or a king. It's just these people in the world who have the strongest wills and the disposition to like want to be the best and the strongest. Like I said, if Gaban has it, Sanji has it. That's how I'm interpreting it. That's basically how I'm reading the translation. But if you feel differently, please let me know. Getting into the next part of the chapter, Luffy actually asks Loki to join his crew. And I think it is actually crazy. I feel like at least once an arc now, we're getting Straw Hat contenders. But I think this is like the first time in One Piece history where we're all equally like, no way, this is not happening. Both, not only are the Straw Hats themselves, like Zoro and Sanji, like, hell no, we're not letting this guy join the crew, but also us as fans, we're like, there's no way this guy's joining the crew. And for that reason alone, I do feel like there is a high chance that Loki could join the crew, just because of us being like, oh yeah, there's no way that would happen. He would never even fit on the ship. I saw some theories that people were saying that Frankie's gonna build Pluton by the end of like the start of the final arc. So I could see them having a giant warship where they have like, the unified Straw Hat allies and stuff like that. That could happen. I don't know if that's the direction Oda's gonna take it, but I'm always welcome for surprises. I never really try to theorize or predict too much of what's going on in One Piece outside of like the direct clues that Oda gives us, because he always throws us for a curveball. I don't know if you guys knew that, but Oda always has a habit of throwing us for a loop. Like we're like, oh, this has gotta happen. And he twists it another way, and we're like, no way. So I do appreciate when Oda like those. I never thought that Luffy would ask Loki to join the crew, so that is a welcome, curveball. I also thought it was so funny. Luffy really has like smoke for anybody. He really was like, yo, it's not a problem if Loki joins the crew, because if he gets out of line, I'll just beat his ass. Like, I'm really like that. Like, I'll put the paws on him. Yeah, what you think I won't smack that goofy ass nigga? Like, it's just, I'll just do that, and it is what it is. And then he has the same smoke for Zoro of all people. Zoro's like, yo, this dude is a fool for being obsessed with Shanks. And Luffy pull up and like, yo, you call Shanks a fool? And Sanji like, nah, he's not talking about Shanks, he's talking about you. Looking mad goofy. So Luffy really will throw hands at anybody if you disrespect Shanks. I think I find that funny. Now, there is a discussion that doesn't Luffy's actions as of recently go against Shanks' teachings to him, where it's like, you can't get upset when people make fun of you or, people around you. I don't know how this works, because he's not getting made fun of. For example, one of my favorite scenes in all One Piece is when Luffy meets Bellamy, and Bellamy makes fun of Luffy because he's like, "Oh yeah, your dream is stupid." And at that point, he not only does Luffy not defend himself or like bother to engage with Bellamy at that point, he also tells Zoro to not do anything. And I thought that was a really impactful moment because you have Luffy, Zoro, and Nami there, the first three people to join. And I feel like at this point that's kind of counterproductive to what like Luffy's been doing recently. For example, when Loki made fun of Shanks in the beginning of Elbaf, Luffy without hesitation went instantly into Gear 4 and tried to seriously punch Loki. Here's the thing. Is it okay for Luffy to act out of anger if one of his friends is being mocked, but not himself? Because Shanks' lesson in the beginning of the story was, don't mess with my friends or then we'll have a problem. But if you want to laugh at me, that's not a problem. But it's like, at the same time, it's like, you can't have, it's kind of, I don't know, it's weird to me. It's kind of like having your cake and eating it too. I just want to know what you guys think about that. With that being said, we do get some more, back and forth between Harojin and Loki. Loki's basically like, I'm not guilty. And so Harjin's like, okay, you have 3 minutes to let me know what's going on. And at this point, this is where we enter flashbackception. So we're going back 14 years ago, before the current story, where we actually see Loki arriving in the castle at the same time that Harold is getting killed by his own men. Like, there's a bunch of like guards and they're all stabbing Harold. We have no idea. This doesn't seem like it's the involvement of Dami Reversi, because when you're looking at Dory and Bragi, like their whole like genetic makeup changes. Like, they grow out horns, they become like 10 feet big, not 10 feet, they become like 50 feet bigger, right? And then it seems like these guards are just normal, and it seems like Harold is normal as well. So we don't know the exact reason why Harold is getting stabbed up right here. I'm not really sure myself. But then at the same time that's happening, we cut away to Shanks and Gabon, who are taking a bath, and they're actually dropping some pretty important information too. The first thing I want to talk about is that because this is 14 years ago before the current story, Shanks still has his left arm, and we can see a tattoo here. Now, this is actually something that people speculated about when we first got introduced to like Shamrock, right? It's very interesting. I don't know if this is something that Shanks planned, where he's like, yeah, I don't want to have the mark of the abyss on me anymore. So he found a way to like get rid of the mark at the same time of like, helping Luffy. I don't think that that's where the story's gonna go, because it feels like it takes a little bit away of Shanks' sacrifice, where it's like, oh, I was doing this for you, but it helped me out too. And I think he genuinely at that moment was willing to give up his arm, because that was like the only way he could like inspire Luffy. I don't think he was sitting there, he's like, which arm should I give up? Should I give up my good arm, my writing arm, or should I give up the arm that that I have the mark of the abyss on? It's just funny to think. He's like, I have to give up an arm to inspire this kid, but which one? Should it be the arm that I write with, or the one that has the generational curse on me that I resent my family for? I guess I'll pick the easy choice here, right? But yeah, basically, so there's a lot of interesting things going on in this chapter, especially towards the end, because we're jumping all over the place and we're getting a lot of lore, right? So Shanks and Gabon are talking, and Shanks basically says like, not Shanks. Gabon basically says, he's like, hey, yeah, it's been like, 3 or 4 years since we all like took a bath together. And then Shanks is like, what are you talking about? It's been 10 years since Roger died. And then that's when Gabon is like, yeah, it must have felt like an eternity for you. Now, I was watching Tekken 101's video. I can't even steal credit for this, but basically he was talking about time dilation. It seems that the giants aged 3 times slower than humans, so it seems like that time moves 3 times slower on Elbaf. Now, I'm not entirely behind this theory, but based off of what Gabon is saying, and based off of what we get later on in the chapter as well, that does seem to be the case. Now, I do think that regardless regardless of where the Giants are, I do think that they naturally always age 3 times slower, but I do think it's a possibility that, Elbaf itself also has like a time dilation thing going on where just the area itself also moves 3 times slower. So now at this point, we get a flashback within a flashback after Gabon and Shanks are talking, and we jump over to King Harold, who's you called like a low-life scumbag. He's terrorizing a village. It's just, it's very interesting to see like who he is at the age of 15, 45, basically, as a teenager in his youth to who he becomes now. The story, I don't know like how like other people are perceiving it, but I feel like the way Elbaf is like going, it's a lot more complex and complicated than what's being shown and presented. There's a lot of pieces on the board, and those pieces all are like complex, but it's not so like straightforward that it's easy to understand. We're being kept in the dark about a lot of these things, and I don't know if the execution is weird and that's why I'm not like understanding it. But it's like at one moment it's like Loki's bad and Loki's good, but is he good or is he bad? We don't know. He's definitely leaning good now, and he's always felt that type of way because Luffy was always vouching for him, and we've always trusted Luffy because he's always been a good judge of character. But now it's like in the flashback, it's like, Harold is the low-life scumbag at 15, but then he's also the benevolent king at, that's worshipped like a god, later on, and he's like, the kindest, most loved king. I don't know exactly where the story is going, and that's like part of the fun for me with One Piece, which is why I don't speculate too much on this. But yeah, I'm excited for their journey. I just want to, get my thoughts out. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next week. Is there a break next week? I don't think there's a break next week because we just came off of a break. So I'll see you guys next week. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. All right, signing out. Bye.
Everyone, I need you all to lend me your